Welcome to Turtlebird Reviews.
Today, I'm going to be reviewing the Stormlight Archives by Brandon Sanderson.
And I'm going to leave this review to her because I have not read the Stormlight Archives.
Because he doesn't read books.
Because I'm an uncultured swine, but perhaps that will change someday, we'll see.
Since Rhythm of War released a couple weeks ago, I thought I'd give you an overall review of the series so far, which includes The Way of Kings, Words of Radiance, and Oathbringer. So I personally love this author. Every time I pick up a book by Brandon Sanderson, I know it's going to be a quality read. So first off, these books take place in Sanderson's interconnecting universe called the Cosmere, on the continent, or the planet, I think, of Roshar. The Way of Kings begins with the assassination of the High King of Alethkar, who had just managed to bring together and unite the 10 unstable factions of these warmongering people under one banner. After this, to keep the nation from falling apart again, the king's son makes a vengeance pact with the 10 high princes to go to war with the people responsible for the king's death. And this war has lasted for decades, and it's the main setting of the beginning of the story. Sanderson stands out to me with his world building and characters. He's well known for his fantastic world building. There's a sprawling cast of amazing characters, and we switch between viewpoints every chapter, and we travel all over the world between friends, enemies, and other mysterious supporting characters. It's especially true here that every person is the hero of their own story. Their actions, motivations, goals, things they fear, things they hold dear are myriad and diverse. So the world of Roshar is complex and rich. It's filled with 1,000 tiny details that really bring it to life. The varied cultures of the different races and people are fascinating. Sanderson crafts so many little details, like fighting styles, war tactics, traditions, fashion, gender dynamics, religion, art, class distinctions, commerce, and different ideals and morals that different cultures have. And all of these things combine to lend so much strength to the story and the characters. So a majorly important phenomena that takes place on Roshar that's also really important to the story are the high storms, which are massive hurricane-sized weather events that sweep across the world from east to west, and they shape the face of the planet as they travel. So closer to what's known as the Origin in the east, these storms they devastate the continent with powerful winds and rains. And then as the storm wall travels to the west, it slowly begins to dissipate into gentler rains, which makes the topography vary quite a bit from east to west. So, like, the flora and fauna of this world, especially in the east, have adapted to the high storms, while the western side of the planet is kind of more like Earth. Most of the creatures in the east are kind of based off of, like, crustacean-type creatures, I guess is the best way to describe them. There's things like kremlins and trolls and chasm fiends, but there's more familiar animals like horses and chickens and stuff in the west. And during high storms, people will put gemstones outside so they can be infused with energy that these storms create, which is called stormlight. This energy is then used to fuel various machines, and it also kind of fuels the magic system that they have in this world. So this story contains thousands of years of history, but it's been lost to the people of the present age. And then it's being slowly revealed over time as characters discover the tragedies that have brought them to where they are today. The past societies of Roshar have been doomed to a cycle of death and rebirth due to recurring cataclysmic events known as the Desolations. The coming of each of these dark times is announced by the appearance of the 10 heralds, and their job was to prepare mankind to stand against the enemy, which is known as the Voidbringers. With each desolation came massive continent-spanning wars that would kill off many of the inhabitants of the whole continent, the whole world really, and it would destroy most of civilization. Every time this happens, civilization has to rebuild itself. So the first book, Way of Kings, opens with an event that occurred 4,500 years before the beginning of the main plot, which was the time of the last desolation. So to help preserve humanity against the desolations, there is raised up a group called the Knights Radiant. But for some reason, a long time ago in the past, they abandoned humanity, and now in the present age, there are people who are kind of cropping up who are displaying the same powers that these knights used to have a long, like thousands of years ago. An important aspect of how war is fought and the power struggles between countries in this world centers around what's called shard plate and shard blades. These are remnants of lost technology from thousands of years ago. Shard plate enhances a wearer with heightened strength, dexterity, and speed, and is powered by Stormlight-infused gems. Shard blades can be summoned and dismissed at will by the wielder, and they'll cut through most non-living material. When they pass through living material, like an arm or a leg, they don't cut the skin. Instead, they drain the life force from that limb or from someone's body. Obviously, owning either or both of these rare items grants a lot of military and social power to the countries that have them. In the present, less than 100 known shard blades have been recovered from a past event during which they were lost to mankind, like so many things from Roshar's rich history, which are being uncovered by characters in the present. Even though there's a massive cast of characters, each one is so unique and memorable that I really didn't have a difficult time remembering any of them or distinguishing between them. Their voices are all very different, so it's kind of easy to keep track of them, despite there being so many of them. So there's a few characters that are our main viewpoint characters, the ones that we follow the most, which include Zeth, who's an assassin who's been cast out by his people for being a warrior, and he's also under a curse or compulsion to obey whatever orders his masters give, no matter how terrible. Another character is Dalinor. He's a high prince of Alethkar who is struggling to hold his nation together after his brother the king was murdered. He's becoming disillusioned with the warlike way of life of the Alethi, after being told to read an ancient book called The Way of Kings by his dying brother, his last words before he passed away. And this book opens Dalinor's eyes to a new code of ideals that he wishes to kind of impart to his people. Dalinor is also under a curse that has made him forget some of his past. And he's afraid that he did terrible things in his past, but he can't remember what it is that he did. He's also starting to suffer from visions every time a high storm hits, which makes people think that he's going crazy. Another main character is Adolin, Dalinor's oldest son, who's afraid that his father's going insane and doesn't understand why he's questioning the Alethi way of life. But he also loves his father and is struggling with whom he must remain loyal to, as Dalinor's making these changes to their home nation. So in Alethkar, class distinctions are between people who have dark eyes, who are lower class, and people who have light-colored eyes, who are the upper class. And one of our other main characters is Kaladin, who's a dark-eyed surgeon turned soldier turned slave who has a burning hatred for the nobility after having his life destroyed by them. And yet alongside this, he finds himself trying to survive on the front line of their war as a bridgeman. He fights to save his unit, Bridge 4, which is notorious for losing the most men during battles. And lastly, we have Shalon, a scholar and artist who's hiding terrible scars and secrets. She's left her home for the very first time in order to save her older brothers and their family estate from being destroyed by other power-hungry nobles in her home country of Jacquevid after the death of her abusive father. All of these characters struggle with their own complex problems, trying to fix their small corner of the world, but then they're brought together to face something even greater that might even threaten the existence of the whole world as they know it. Sanderson's books generally have a slow burn to them. They're thick and meaty and just filled to the brim with content, and they're not usually the quickest to read because of their length, but if you can get into them and take the journey with the characters, he delivers some of the most satisfying climaxes and gut-wrenching revelations I've ever read, sometimes literally leaving you cheering or in tears. Every decision that characters make is important and it has motivation, and is either an insight into the characters themselves or part of their development. You certainly feel as though you're making the journey with each of them, understanding suffering and grief and triumph, and even understanding when they make terrible choices along the way. It's a treasure trove of immersion and empathy that will definitely reel you in if you give it a chance. And if you have any interest in high fantasy, this should be at the top of your to-read list. I'd say Stormlight Archives is definitely an A+ series. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching.
Stay tuned for more Turtlebird reviews of books and movies and games and other such things. Like and subscribe, and stay tuned for future reviews. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Adios.